Glad to have you back. Today we wanted to finish up with part two of Which Leak is Yours? And if you recall, in the first part, we went over three common areas: the breath, the eyes, and the feet, which make up a large proportion of where most leaks occur in young pitchers. Well, in any pitcher for that matter, it doesn't have to be young or old, but in most pitchers. And the thought being that to increase velocity, it's not so much increasing velocity as it is plugging leaks throughout the body that is preventing a pitcher from obtaining their highest velocity. So today, where I wanted to pick up was an area that I just didn't get enough time to get into. And obviously, this could be an ongoing life journey. But I wanted to go back over a couple of items today, as you know, in your actionable items as you're working on your game, as to what to look for when we're doing this. And in today's age, we see a lot of video. Let's look at video, let's use video, let's stop video, let's do everything with video. And I just want to send out a caution, understand the tool. And, when I was growing up, there used to be a little show at a little film in high school. It was the old film strips, if anybody can recall that. But it was Primitive Pete, and Primitive Pete always used his tools incorrectly. So he'd always use a screwdriver as a chisel and such. So don't be a Primitive Pete when it comes to working with your video. And what I mean by that, when I'm using my video, I'm going to watch that in real time, 2 or 3 times. I'm just trying to get a feel for what it is that the pitcher is doing. I want to get rhythm. I want to, I just want to see that natural element of it. And then at that point, if I want to start breaking it down, I can, but it's not so much the points as it is what am I looking for. Okay. And that's what we wanted to get into here today. So let us do that. And let me head over here. Okay. So with today, what we're going to start, what am I looking for? If I'm using my video, if I'm trying to watch my player in real time, well, the very first thing I'm looking at is the back foot. So my skeleton here on our kinetic chain, my skeleton here, we're looking at legs, would be my back foot. When I'm looking at my player, it's the back foot. Is he through his ankle? Is he through the middle of that foot? Or when he throws, before his front foot lands, do I see the heel come up? Do I see, is there something else that I see? Might I see his toes flip up in the air a little bit? Do I see him rock back a little bit so that his foot is wobbling somewhat? And, so I'm going to start looking for that. That's the very first area that I look for. And probably what will happen, as Coach Johnson, Scotty Johnson, is often fond of saying, that the body will travel foot to foot. So typically what happens on the backside will begin to occur on the front side. So if my heel comes up off the ground, if I get forward to the ball of my foot, what I'll do is I'll project myself forward. It's actually going to be in an angle because I do know I'm going towards the plate, but I'm not going to be directly towards the plate. And then what will happen is I will land on the ball of my front foot and I'll start running off the mound. I'll start launching myself forward. And what happens is I become very, very linear. And that will have an effect further up the chain through the elbow and through the shoulder. So a lot of that, we'll cue that, inappropriately cue that. We'll give a lot of times we'll talk about stick your hand in the glove, move to the catcher, stick your nose to into the catcher's glove. All those types of cues will get us very, very linear, and it'll eliminate our ability to rotate. Okay, so again, I'm going to look on that back foot, heel up, heel down. What else is going on in that area? So as I travel, then I'm looking then the next slide here, I think it should be our hips. It is. And a lot of issues will happen here, you know, because we're asking our guys to push those hips, to falsely load those hips, to lead with the hips. And what will happen is we start pushing the hips up, and the hips want to mirror the mound. They want to ride the mound. And so instead of us sitting, activating the glutes and driving down into it, what we'll do is we will hit triple extension. So that ankle will extend, that knee will extend, and therefore the hip will extend. And what will happen is that pelvic area and the upper torso area will all move as one piece. And if you look very closely here at the video here, excuse me, that was me tapping my pad here. I didn't know it did that. You'll notice there's a slight separation of the pelvis compared to the upper body. And I'm not trying to create separation. I just want to be aware of it. Well, I can get that separation because if we see that knee bend, that is happening because there's a sitting action going on. And that sitting action actually lets me turn my hips without turning my upper body. If you recall yesterday, we did a breathing drill. That is part of this. The other half of this equation with the hips is it allows me to keep my head and to keep my center line exactly that. Keep it centered. If I triple extend, if I hit that extension, if I push off that back leg, I'm going to push my head very far forward. It's not going to allow me to rotate on that axis in the most efficient manner. I'm going to tip out forward. My arm is probably going to drag a little bit. I'm going to be late to get there, so that will cause some areas as well. I'm going to try to go backwards here, and if I can, we did. So then the next area that we're going to look for is when the front foot hits. And when the front foot hits, I don't know if I get that far here on my, nope, it's just a little bit short, but hopefully we can use our Barney imagination today. So as I start to move forward, does that front foot stick the ground from the top down? Okay, I don't want to walk into it heel to toe. I don't want to hit toe to heel. I don't want to be on the side. When that foot hits, does it stabilize? That stabilization of that front foot is what I'm going to rotate around. Therefore, if it's moving, it's going to leak. Okay, so that is the next area that I'm looking at. So in other regards there, so as I keep looking at it, sorry, just banging around in here. The next item I would look at would be that front knee. Does the knee stay inside the hip as long as possible, or does it open out quick? If it's something that is opening out quick, then we might want to pay attention to what is happening at that point. And you can see right towards the bottom, we'll see a little arrow flick around where we're getting an appropriate opening rotation at that moment. Okay, so we'll let you take a look at that. Oh, and there's a nice reminder. Hey guys, and if you are appreciate what's going on here, if you like the information that's coming down, please do. Please share or comment. Send it to somebody that you think could use it. Please click the like button. I would appreciate that. Okay, so as we continue to look at that hip, so far we've talked about the back foot. We've got the front foot stabilizing. We talked about the hips and the extension and such, and then obviously where it all ends up, as I move back over, where this would all end up is through the upper body. And here we can see this a little bit closer. We see that separation. Now we start to see the backside rotate. Okay, and this, oops, that's the hips. Here's the one that I wanted. Okay, and this is that stable. Here's my stabilized front side. So as we use your imagination here slightly a little bit again, we can see that the ball is released. It goes from external rotation to internal rotation with the right arm with the elbow and such. And we see that knee has landed solidly. The ball would have left the hand, and then we see that the reverb, the recoil happen, and that's when that leg would straighten out. But we're seeing that hip rotate around that front leg. And what will happen is, with all of those energies flowing through, that upper body is the recipient of harvesting all that energy. We want to make sure that we're getting extension. Extension is not the arm heading to the plate. Extension is getting that shoulder rotated through extension, as well as the arm and the wrist and the fingers. And, you know, as far as pitches go and such, we've, you know, I don't know if we ever want to encumber the mind with how-tos. I happen to like it because I'm not a pitcher. At this moment in time, I'm an old man. But with our kids, with our players, they may not like that, but I do. But when we start to understand the physics and the scientific laws that are in play when it comes to throwing pitches, and the understanding that, you know, if I pull down on the backside of the ball, I'm going to impart, you know, some velocity, depending on where my fingers are. If I'm forward on the ball, I'm going to get a little more depth work with it. If I'm to the side of the ball. So all of that would come into play with how I rotate and how we can configure pitches, literally configure pitches, create them for break and for side-to-side movement and for top-down movement. And you know, and that's something that most coaches do really well, is in helping kids to throw those breaking balls a little bit easier. But anyhow, hey, there we go. That's day 7. Again, what I wanted to do, I wanted to get back over this pitching topic, and the idea of that one being what the flaws that I'm looking for. Where can I identify some of the quicker leaks that can be identified and plugged up relatively quickly? Okay.